Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving back into China's property market, a crisis that a lot of people thought was already contained. Well, a new development has just sent a fresh shockwave through the global economy, and it all starts with one company's unexpected stumble.
Just when you thought the story might be over, a brand new tremor has shaken China's economy. And this one starts with a company that was supposed to be untouchable, one of the safe ones, a developer that really wasn't supposed to fail. And that company? It's China Vanke. We're talking about one of the country's largest, most reliable real estate developers, but it just sent a massive shockwave through the markets. And now everyone's afraid this crisis has entered a much more dangerous new phase. All right, so let's get right into it. What exactly happened here? Why is Vanke making investors so incredibly nervous? Well, it all kicks off with a couple of really important numbers. It started with this, 2 billion yuan. That was the size of a corporate bond payment that Vanke suddenly announced it couldn't make on time. Now, that might not sound like a crazy amount of money for a company this big, but it was the signal it sent that caused the absolute panic. And that's because everyone's eyes immediately jumped to this much, much bigger number, 13.4 billion yuan. That's the total debt Vanke has to pay back between now and mid-2026. So the question is pretty simple, right? If you're struggling with 2 billion, how in the world are you going to handle the other 13? So this news basically lit a fire in the bond market. I mean, think about it. A corporate bond is just a big IOU from a company to its investors. The second those investors get a whiff of fear, the idea they might not get their money back, they rush for the exits. And that's exactly what happened. Fear of a default caused a stampede. Investors dumped Vanke's bonds and their value just cratered. Okay, so here's the thing. Vanke's problem isn't just about Vanke. It's like a canary in a coal mine, signaling a much, much bigger problem, a wider economic slowdown that's gripping the entire country. And when you look at the data, whoa, it paints a really stark picture. Let's start with what people are actually buying, or, well, what they're not buying. Retail sales growth has just been sliding, hitting its lowest point all year. I mean, this isn't just a number on a chart. When everyday people stop spending money, it's a huge red flag. It means they're nervous about the future, and that nervousness just spreads, freezing up the whole economy. And it's not just shoppers, it's happening in China's factories too. We call China the world's factory for a reason, but that factory is slowing way down. Just look at that drop in 1 month. Fewer orders and slower production, well, that hits millions of workers right in their wallets. But maybe the most chilling sign of all is this one. This is investment in things like new factories and equipment. It's basically businesses betting on their own future growth. And after falling for 7 straight months, it has now turned negative. That's a huge deal. It means companies are so pessimistic, they've stopped investing in tomorrow. And then, of course, you get to the property sector itself, and wow, the numbers are just brutal. Investment has absolutely collapsed. The economic engine that powered China's boom for decades, it's not just stalled, it's basically seized up. So you have to ask yourself, how did we even get here? How does a giant like Vanke suddenly end up on the edge of a cliff? Well, to get that, we need to rewind and go back to the very beginning of this whole mess. And here's the absolute key to understanding all of this. This crisis was never really about people needing a place to live. Nope. It was a giant gamble. A speculative frenzy where people were buying up apartments like they were stocks, just hoping to flip them for a quick buck as prices went to the moon. And what poured gasoline on this fire? A whole shadow world of finance. These so-called shadow banks operated in the dark, outside the normal rules, and they pumped insane amounts of high-risk borrowed money into the market. They basically built this entire boom on a mountain of very, very shaky debt. And the poster child for all of this, of course, it was Evergrande. Just look at this timeline. A $50 billion titan that collapsed under more than $300 billion in debt. Its spectacular implosion was the moment the world realized just how fragile this whole house of cards really was. Okay, so we've seen the problem, we've seen how it started. So what's the plan? What is Beijing actually doing to stop the bleeding and manage this escalating crisis? Well, Beijing is trying to walk a very, very fine line here. On one side, they're playing hardball. For the big, bloated developers like Evergrande, the message is clear. You're on your own. No more bailouts. But on the other side, they're trying to help out actual home buyers, people who just want a place to live, by cutting mortgage rates and trying to coax them back into the market.
But this is an incredibly tough challenge because it all boils down to one simple thing. As the source material says, cash flow is the lifeblood of the economy. And right now, that blood is clotting. Developers can't sell, buyers are scared to buy, and when that circulation stops, the whole system starts to shut down. Which brings us right back to where we started today. Because despite everything Beijing is trying to do, the warning lights on the dashboard are flashing redder than ever. This crisis is not over, not by a long shot. Let's just run through the checklist, shall we? Home prices, still falling, and the experts think they'll keep falling for a couple more years. The shadow banks that funded this whole mess, the biggest one just went belly up. And the dominoes, well, they're still falling. First Country Garden and now Vanke, showing serious signs of distress. The contagion is spreading. And that's exactly why this Vanke news is such a big deal. It's not just another company in trouble. It's the proof. It's the definitive evidence that this crisis is not contained. The financial rot that started with Evergrande is continuing to spread, reaching deeper and deeper into the very foundations of China's economy. So this leaves us with the billion-dollar question, maybe the trillion-dollar question. Is what we're watching a controlled demolition, with Beijing carefully taking down the broken parts of the system? Or are we watching the early stages of an unstoppable collapse, one that could ripple out and hit all of us? That's the question on everyone's mind today.